The trend of self-love and self-care is rising, to the point where people are marrying themselves. Yes, it's called sologamy. And yet, we've never been more miserable and depressed. I'm going to dive into why I believe that loving yourself or self-improvement, in many ways, leads to low self-esteem and makes you unsuccessful, the psychology behind why that is, and how doing the opposite of self-love will change your life. And by the opposite of self-love, I don't mean others harm. So put down the pitchfork, Michelle. We're not doing that. So put on your seatbelts, let's get into it. How could anyone possibly say anything bad about self-love or self-improvement? Hi, my name is Leon Hendricks, and in my career, I've helped thousands of people hate themselves and others. Self-love, self-care, self-improvement, none of these are inherently bad. In fact, they're great. I'm a big fan. Let's do it. It's important. Be gentle with yourself, improve yourself, but it doesn't really work out. I don't see it hold up. Because at the core of it is a psychological mind F that causes this to happen, that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Over the recent decade or two, I don't need to pull up a graph to prove to you that with the rise of social media, depression and anxiety and overall unhappiness and loneliness went up. It doesn't take a genius to make that correlation between these two. And with it, the buzzwords self-love and self-care happen to also steadily rise, and it seems to be at an all-time high in the last few years. And you might say, oh, that's just because it's a counter-movement to social media and depression and anxiety, because we need self-love to counteract that. But I think in many ways, social media and this whole self-love and self-care movement it's part of the same problem. I love analogies, so it's just a different tentacle of the same monster. Think about it. What do self-care, self-love, and self-improvement all have in common? The self. It's focused on yourself. It is about yourself. And what I think all of this is a part of is the rise in self-obsession. Nothing wrong with love, care, improvement, but when you put the self in front of it, it's not that we're suffering from a lack of self-love. Looks like that on the outside, but I believe we're suffering from self-obsession. And social media has multiplied that tenfold. And I know somebody like Gary Vee would say, no, social media just exposed us. I would say, yes, it did. This is part of human nature. It's like this self-obsession. We're very selfish. We think about ourselves. It's part of our, just ancestral DNA, because that was necessary to survive. Yes, it exposes us, and I believe it also 10x'd it. Who are the people who talk most about self-love? It's usually what I see, unhappy and depressed people who are desperate for validation on Instagram, posting their booty pics with an inspiring self-love quote, people who are not feeling good about themselves, people who are obsessed with how they look and their looks maxing. This is the whole story of Narcissus. Is that how you say his name?
Narcissus.
Nailed it. Who just kept staring into the reflection of the river or the lake, whatever, and he was obsessed with his looks and his image. I think it's undeniable that social media is tickling out more of that in us, in this self-obsession, and looking at how we're perceived, how we can be perceived better, and looking at what we don't have, comparing ourselves. And we have to understand narcissism is a spectrum. It's not either you have it or you don't. We all have it to an extent. We're all narcissistic to some extent, where we have an ego, we're insecure, we cover it up with walls that we put up and images that we're trying to maintain, right? And narcissists, deep down, hate themselves, but portray this image of self-love and being awesome, and they're above everything, right? And I believe that you can develop increasing narcissistic tendencies by just certain behaviors or being exposed to certain inputs like social media. But you may be like, I'm not like those social media people that, posting booty pics with self-love quotes in their bio. My self-love is different. It's genuine. It's just me by myself reading my book. Even there, I would say it's still not serving you. And there's a psychological reason for this that I can't wait to share and get to this part, but I want to build my argument further here. So give me a little bit more time. This whole rise of self-obsession also shows up in society. We have a decline in intimate relationships, marriages, family dependencies, just being close to your family. I mean, I left my family in Germany and I'm in the US by myself now. less kids. I mean, we talked about stophavingkids.org, and that is an absolutely interesting movement that, again, I think is rooted in self-obsession. 22% of millennials say they have no friends. 3 in 10 millennials say they always or often feel lonely. 22% of millennials in the poll said they had 0 friends. 27% said they had no close friends. 30% said they have no best friends. It's a rise of loneliness and independence, because we all want to be independent, focus on our career. Total hypocrite here, because I'm kind of doing all of these things. I'm delaying having kids. I left my entire family in Germany to pursue the American dream and build my business here. A kid's dream. Back in the day, when you asked them at school, what do you want to be when you grow up? It used to be firefighter, astronaut, policeman, working with animals, right? Like being a butcher. Maybe not that, but something with animals. Now it's becoming rich and famous. I mean, we've all heard of, I want to be a YouTuber. What's the image that they have of YouTubers? It's people who are famous and they're rich and they're able to make it from their bedroom. So probably also lazy. Now, sologamy is a thing. How do you pronounce that?
Sologamy.
Nailed it. Sologamy is the idea of marrying yourself and being self-partnered. A lot of people got that on their radar when Emma Watson talked about it, aka Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. Emma Watson says she's self-partnered. Here's what that means and why it's not a bad idea. My heart is melting. Anyways, I can hardly imagine something more narcissistic and self-obsessed than this. Maybe it was just an interview and she was like, oh, you know what? I'm in my 30s. I'm self-partners. Let's just call it that. And maybe she's easygoing about it and the whole media is just making a fuss about it. You know, I'll give her some grace because I think she's wonderful, given that she helped defeat Voldemort. Maybe I should say he who must not be named. Otherwise, this will get demonetized. But this is part of the self-love, self-care movement. Reasons for choosing self-marriage might include to express how being single doesn't mean being incomplete or lonely. While there's some controversy about self-marriage, sologamy continues to grow in popularity around the world, particularly among women. People can feel perfectly happy with themselves and their lives as an individual without the need for another half to make them whole. I agree. I think you can be content being by yourself, but to reach your highest expression and the most fulfilling life possible, you can only truly love someone when you know how to love yourself. This is one of these things where everyone goes, yeah. It's a very wise statement. It rolls off the tongue smoothly. It's easy to repeat. But if you really think about it, why? Why can I only truly love someone else when I know how to love myself? Okay, let's follow the line of reasoning. If I don't love myself, then I can't love somebody else because there's something missing in me that I have to generate within myself, like, and then I can give it away. Is it like, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. I can think I'm a piece of garbage and still love my dog. I can still love my family. I can still love my partner and really care for them and be there for them. There's plenty of people who've done that. And here's the thing. I think it's important to be gentle with yourself, to love yourself, to look after yourself, but it's not a prerequisite to love somebody else. In the context of an intimate relationship, to me, it only makes sense that I can't really receive love if I don't feel worthy of it. Or in other words, I don't love myself enough. If I don't feel worthy of love and somebody loves me up, I'm resistant to that because I feel like, I don't deserve this. Then it makes sense. But then again, it's about you. It's about yourself. It should be saying you can only be loved if you love yourself. Yes, good for you. But it's again about you. Even if you don't really like yourself that much, you can totally love someone. There are so many people who I see that are using this as an excuse to not go out and date, to not go out and put themselves out there, meet a new person, take a risk, show someone that they like them. Because, before I meet the one person, before I go out and date, I first have to love myself because only then I can love others. It's like, no, you can still love other people. And the best way to move through that is to get into the arena, put yourself out there, get hurt. suck, but it'll be worth it. You're not going to love yourself dating yourself. I just don't buy that. The tricky thing is, a part of that is true for some people. You can take yourself on a date, you can accept yourself, you can love yourself, all of that. You also get to be responsible for your own happiness. For some people, that's exactly what they need to do. But that's the minority. I think it's overemphasized to the point where it does the opposite for people. I think a common objection would also be, but wouldn't that make me too obsessed with pleasing other people when I just make everything about other people and I don't look after myself? Yes, that's true. There's different advice or different growth opportunities that apply to different people. Some of you, you're just taking care of other people and you're not looking after yourself. And for those of you, yeah, take yourself on a date. Like, look after yourself, meet your own needs. But I think even people pleasing, as somebody who's a recovered people pleaser, it's still about you. Because you're doing it for validation. You're doing it to be seen a certain way and to be accepted or to avoid pain. Just something. It's still just about you. So let's get into what the psychological reason is behind why self-love creates what we don't want and how we can use that to get everything that we actually do want. And it's very counterintuitive, but it'll make sense once you hear it. So stick with me here. I always like to try to find names for these ideas so I can coin them, take credit for them, and sound smart. It's part of me just enjoying the smell of my own farts, really. And I've coined this term or this idea, the echo effect. Everything we do or say or how we interact in the world gives us some sort of feedback about ourselves and who we are and our place in the world. It's like a mirror, right? So for example, there are lots of people who are into trauma healing. They go down this endless rabbit hole of ayahuasca ceremonies, inner child work, opening chakras, top to bottom like there's no tomorrow. And you find a lot of narcissism and enjoying the smell of their own farts in that realm. And those people will tell you, I'm on a self-healing journey. And here's the echo effect. If I'm saying I'm healing, the echo of my words and my attitude says, because there must be something broken with me. If you're healing, there must be something broken. I know a bunch of people who are in this endless cycle of healing my trauma, and they tell everyone how they're healing themselves. And it just reinforces this assumption about themselves that something is broken that creates their reality and identity and how they see the world and how they see themselves and how they fit into it. How we define ourselves, our self-image and identity. We want to stay consistent with it. And they just train their brains and their neural circuits to constantly repeat this idea that I'm healing because I must be broken somehow. And you see these people going down these endless cycles of like, there's another thing, and they find another thing, and another thing that's missing. And whenever they feel bad, it must be because of a trauma that they had. It's like, no, maybe that's just life. And you're just perpetuating this story, and this echo just keeps giving you this feedback that there's something wrong with you, and there's something wrong with you. And you keep looking, you train yourself to do that, and you're in this endless cycle of doing that. And you see this in all facets of life. And in your life right now as well. I have that in my life too. It's not just for those people, it's for us as well. We have that as well. For example, a friend of mine shared with me his goal of trying to become a full-time creator, right? And we were talking about his goals and what he wanted. And I was like, okay, you're trying to become a full-time creator, but what is your job? He's like, oh, I'm just creating. And how much do you make? Oh, I'm making a full-time income. So I was like, stop trying to make it work and trying to make it as a full-time creator because you're already doing it. Because his echo kept saying, I'm not there yet. I'm struggling. I'm about to be there, but I'm not there yet. I'm trying to become a full-time creator. When in reality, he already was. And it's this self-image that he kept perpetuating of trying. And that was a bit of an unlock for him. Another example came to me in New Year's Eve. I was in Rio. It was a blast. I was there with friends. And I met this girl at the beach. She was very successful. She had a good job. She was leading a team. The reason why I knew all of these things is because she told me. Because she was the kind of confident that had to tell you and had to let you know that she's confident. By the way, she was very confident. Her echo of how she was behaving, even though she was saying in her head and to other people, I'm confident, I got everything together, a deeper part of you knows, and the echo repeats, don't mess with me because I'm insecure. And I could just feel how she was in a cycle of trying to prove something that she didn't feel, and she was overcompensating. And I remember in that group conversation, seeing my friend's girlfriend next to her, and she's the definition of a strong woman. She's confident, she loves herself, she doesn't need a man, but she chooses one, And she doesn't need to tell you that she's confident. She just is. And bringing it back to self-love and self-care and all of that shizzle, I believe the same thing happens to a lot of people who focus on loving themselves. It's that they're trying so hard. And every time they say, I love myself, I'm going to take myself on a date, I'm currently on a self-healing journey, and they focus on the next thing to feel good about themselves, the echo repeats, I don't feel good enough. I don't love myself. So I have to do all these things to convince myself. People who truly love themselves, they don't think about self-love. They just do. The people who focus on self-love and do all of these things tend to not love themselves. And then they never really get there. I mean, look at the self-marrying sologamy thing. Reasons for choosing self-marriage might include wanting to affirm your relationship with yourself or to express how being single doesn't mean being incomplete or lonely. What does the echo repeat right here? Look how much I love myself. I'm not incomplete or lonely. Just wanted to affirm that for everyone to see. There's always a deeper part of you that you can't fool. If you're healing yourself, the echo says, because I'm broken. I'm trying to be confident because I'm actually not. I'm improving myself because I'm not good enough. I'm loving myself because I don't feel enough. And you can do all of these things from a healthy place, but there's just subtle differences, and I want to get into how to actually approach that and experiences that I've had that really have made this come to life and really changed the way that I operate in the world. There's also an interesting idea around the ironic process theory that I think is fascinating to look at in this context as well, also known as the white bear problem, which is a psychological theory that explains how trying to avoid a thought or emotion can backfire. The theory suggests that the monitoring process can cause the thought or emotion to occur more frequently and intensely. They asked him to think about a white bear. The subject ended up being more aware of white bears, suggesting that suppressing thoughts can lead to obsessive thinking. Makes sense. As you are repeating these things to yourself, oh, I do love myself, it keeps just putting more focus on that problem. So what do? How do we move past this? I want to share a very interesting idea with you that I learned about last year that has changed the way that I approach goal setting and what I'm striving for. If I'm wanting to love myself, I go a very different route now, because some goals move away from us as we directly pursue them. It's like a cat that only comes to you when you sit down and you chill. You don't care about the cat coming to you. In fact, you don't want the cat to hang out with you. And then, of course, the sucker comes up. Examples of goals like that in categories like happiness. When you're pursuing happiness directly as a goal, it tends to move away from you because you just keep seeing the gap. And Hormozi was also talking about this, that he was pursuing happiness. It made him miserable. He just kept seeing the gap, and it reinforces this echo of, I'm not happy. If you're pursuing happiness, it means you're not happy. And since he said, you know what, screw happiness, he's become a lot happier. Another example is if you're desperately looking for a relationship, you'll be needy and desperate, which is a big turnoff. And if you let go of the need, you become more attractive and you tend to get into a relationship. That's what happens to all my friends all the time, and myself. When I'm not looking for a relationship, that's when it happens. And there's always some lady that walks in a red dress and all the plans that I previously had, and then, yeah, we get romantic. And if you're directly pursuing money, you tend to make short-term decisions instead of focusing on adding value to your customers, which then gets you the money. And if you're desperately wanting to love yourself, you tend to reinforce that you're not enough. And that brings me to the idea of obliquity, meaning a characteristic of being deliberately indirect or vague, or let's just say adjacent. So for goals like this, you want to set an obliquity goal, which is not directly the thing, but it's adjacent. So for example, instead of pursuing happiness, you eat right, sleep well, have a purpose in life, and you do the things that you know make you happy. You just set that as a goal. And then happiness just becomes a byproduct. For relationships, just go out twice a week, do a new hobby, talk to 10 people a week. Instead of pursuing money, set a goal to solve your customer's problem. And what would that look like for self-love or self-improvement? At the beginning of my YouTube channel, I had this really unique idea that I thought was going to put my channel on the map. It's going to blow up. It's going to be great. I don't remember exactly what video idea it was. And I remember this guy who I talked to this idea about, and he went and ran with it. He just took it, and it was doing well. Felt like, logically speaking, this is unfair. I'm being mistreated. And what the echo reflected back to me was that this was my chance, and I lost it. I'm struggling, and resources are limited, and I just lost it. It was like I was trying to fill up this cup that only had a little bit of water in it, and there was like a faucet that had a few drops coming out. I was just like trying to get every single drop that I could get. And that just got completely limited. And I sat there and I had this insight. What if I did the opposite? What if I was actually happy for him? And I was like, you know what? Yes, he took my idea. It's doing well. I'm happy it's working out for him. It's going to support him well in his journey. And as I started feeling these thoughts, initially it felt weird and it just didn't feel congruent, like I was genuinely feeling that. But as I thought about it further, I was like, I feel completely different. I feel like I just got lifted to a higher level of consciousness. Because what the echo repeated to me was, I'm doing so well that I'm happy for others succeeding alongside me. And going back to the cup analogy, it's not just that I'm fighting for the scraps of every single drop. My cup is full. In fact, my cup is so full and there's so much water flowing. It's overflowing. You can have some. I can't contain all of this myself. Here, have it. Because I have plenty. And it was just this feeling of abundance and lightness and just like, wow, I really must have things figured out and I must be doing well if I can be happy for this other person. I had the same experience later on when I was going through a breakup and I saw my ex with someone else and I was just happy for them. I was like, this is great. I hope this is a good guy. I hope he's treating her well. And, he is. So, amazing. I'm super happy. Next time you're jealous of someone, let's say they're more attractive than you and they have something going for them that you don't, and maybe their life looks easier on the outside because of that, what if you went, I'm really happy for this person. I'm happy that they have this going for them. Because they may have the personality of a cardboard box because they never had to develop one, but I'm happy that they have this going for them. Because some people don't, and it makes them feel like they're struggling and they don't have this problem. Great. I hope they're happy. Just try it out with someone in your life right now. Someone who you're holding a grudge against, someone who's mistreated you, someone who you're jealous of, and notice how it makes you feel. It's almost like when I'm not obsessing over myself, I'm happier. And whenever I'm suffering, I'm stressed or I'm anxious, or I'm worried about the future, I'm mad or I'm sad about something, it's about me. It's about myself. It's some selfish drive behind it where I'm not getting what I want. My ego is hurt. My expectations aren't met. I'm being treated unfairly. What if I don't get what I want? Me. It's just about me. It's without fail. The reason why this works for me is because I think there's this signal, and again, this feedback that comes back from certain behaviors, right? You may have heard of the forced smile, that when you put a pen in your mouth, it forces this smile that then signals to your brain, oh, we're smiling, looks like we're happy, and then it secretes the happy chemicals in your brain. And I think the same thing happens with our behavior, and that again connects to the echo. When you're happy for someone who is doing well that normally you would be jealous of, or you're happy for an ex-partner that is with a new person, it's almost like it signals to your system, wow, that must mean I'm doing super well if I can be happy for someone else. That must mean that my cup is not just full, it's overflowing, and it just creates this completely new reality that creates this feeling that we all desire, this feeling of self-love. I'm enough. My cup is full. At least it does for me. Try it out. And this is a cycle that a lot of us are in. And the best way out of it is to do the counterintuitive thing. But it is challenging. It's tough to catch yourself. Think about this. Unhappy people tend to be more selfish. When they're depressed or unhappy or even sick, your entire system just shields itself. And it's just like, how do I survive? How do I get by? It's just about your own survival. You may say, well, they have to be because they have to look after themselves. And that's true. On the flip side, selfish people, I believe, tend to be most unhappy. And it's this cycle where when you're unhappy, depressed, sick, whatever, you tend to be more selfish, and that ends up making you more self-obsessed, making you more unhappy because it signals to your system continuously, there's something wrong here, there's something wrong here. And even when everything is fine, because the behavior and the attitude is trained, and then you see a post on social media talking about self-love and how important it is to feel good about yourself and take yourself on a date, you're still selfish, even though you're doing well. And it signals to your system, I'm not doing well. There's a story that Tony Robbins shares early in his career where he shares a very similar experience that he had. He had the last few dollars in his pocket, like maybe 30 or 40 bucks. He was late on his rent payment. He was struggling in his business. He was just at the beginning of his career. And he was also owed money by a friend. And he was just hopefully that money comes in soon. With this last money that he had, he could afford another dinner at this place that he used to go to. And he saw this kid that was really courteous with his mom. He would like pull out the chair, sit down his mom, be very polite and gentle with her. And Tony was like, this is an incredible kid. I want to reward this behavior. And he walked over with the last few dollars that he had. And he was like, kid, I want you to take out your mom for this dinner. Here's the money. Treat her well. You're doing such a great job. And with that, he had no more money left. He had not much to give. And yet he broke this cycle of giving. And what he shared was he didn't just walk home. He flew home. It created this echo of things will be fine. I may be worried about money right now, but I just gave this money away, so I must be fine. And he came home to a letter with the money that he needed for the rent and then some from the friend who owed him money that finally paid him back. Was it the universe? A higher power? Maybe. You don't have to believe in that. I believe in that stuff sometimes, depending on how well I slept the previous night. So right now I think it's a bit woo-woo. So I thought about 2 ways to break the cycle of this scarcity. The first one is very simple. It seems stupid, but it works. And again, it's very counterintuitive. After finishing this video, I think it'll become so obvious to you how ingrained this whole me self-obsession is in our culture. I'm yet to see a video with millions of views talking about how to make your partner really, really happy. Because it's scary. What if they don't reciprocate? But instead, it's about how to make someone obsessed with you, or how to set boundaries so that you can get what you want. To take it into a business sense, no one talks about how to make a great product. Listen, I've gone to a lot of conferences, so many. And all of the speeches are about how to increase your revenue, how to be seen more by your customers, how to get more attention. Me. When at the core of it, business is about solving a problem, and the best product tends to win. Yes, there are some people who are so good at marketing and self-obsession and getting attention on themselves that even with a bad product, they can win. But the companies who have the best product, think about Tesla, think about iPhones, they don't do that much marketing. And they don't need to because it's so good. And the key skill in business and also in relationships in general is being able to meet someone's needs. For me, the more I can think about what you guys want, you, the viewer, the listener, and what would support you guys, the better my videos will do. Not thinking about what I want, what I need, what I want to talk about more, even though that is important too, to some extent. When I serve the viewer, the most fulfilling points in my life have been when I was able to be in support of someone or of something, when I was able to add value to others through a video or just being there for a friend through a phone call when they were going through a breakup or something like that. So the first way that I see to break out of this cycle is to give value to someone else. Just be there for someone. Be there for a friend who's going through a breakup. Solve a problem for someone. And as weird as it sounds, be useful, right? And I think a lot of people would think, oh, I just have to be useful. Like love is not unconditional. Love is unconditional. And you tend to feel even more of it when people appreciate you because what you do matters. When you self-improve from a place of, oh, I need to get better because there's something wrong with me. I'm broken. But when it comes from the standpoint of I want to serve others, I want to make things better, and it's out of excitement rather than to fix yourself, it has very different energy. And as a caveat, obviously, for those of you who are like, oh yeah, time to sacrifice myself and not meet my own needs, part of serving others is also filling your own cup, making sure it stays full so that you can continue to serve others. Because even if the faucet is running water like crazy, if you have a massive hole in your cup, you can't contain it. And then you can't give it out, right? To stick with the epic analogies here. And maybe that could just look like a 30-day challenge where every day you give a gift to someone without credit. Just love somebody else. Just support someone or give a compliment to a stranger. Or what you can also do is just go through your contact list. And every single day for 30 days, you message one person, maybe someone that's really close, maybe someone who's an acquaintance or a friend, and you just acknowledge them for something that you admire about them. This alone, I believe, will light you up. Because if you can give compliments to others and you can acknowledge others and love others, what does that say about you? And secondly, this one is, I think, the most powerful way to live this way, love yourself, and really get everything you want. And I think it's really well illustrated by the story of Scott Harrison. He was a club promoter in New York, living a lavish lifestyle around attractive people, getting drunk, drugs, everything, all of the vanity. But he was deeply unhappy. And 10 years later of doing all of this, he just couldn't take it any longer. He felt like a shell of a man, spiritually empty, because there was just so much self-obsession in his life and how he looks and how he appears. And from that, he decided, for a whole year, I'm just going to serve others. And he applied to a bunch of organizations to volunteer, got rejected everywhere, somehow made it happen. And now he's the founder of Charity Water, which is a nonprofit organization bringing clean and safe water to people around the world. 18 million people impacted. Same thing with someone like Tim Ballard from Operation Underground Railroad. They are saving children from human trafficking, the deepest depths of human suffering. Can you imagine these guys having issues with self-love or feeling enough? I think the most powerful way to get out of this cycle is to have a purpose larger than yourself, an ubiquitous goal that is adjacent to your self-worth, which is that you give to others. When you serve something bigger than yourself, without looking for validation or credit or what's in it for you, other than maybe your own fulfillment, it decreases your level of self-obsession, which in return will give you unshakable self-esteem. And it doesn't even have to be a worldwide impact. It can simply be building a family. When you're having kids, for the first time, you're truly putting someone else's needs before your own. And as much as we want to be sologamous and self-partner ourselves and not depend on others, we'll never be independent. The richest and most fulfilling experiences come through relationships. To end on a quote by Catherine Boyle, "For too long, we've been told we can be anything, do anything, and that all criticisms of that anything are an attack on our identity and very being. That self-love and self-care are all we need to thrive. And yet, we've never seemed more miserable, never been more lost, and never less confident in what we stand for. Maybe one day, the all-knowing AI will tell us the truth. Find a purpose outside yourself. You are not enough." What do you mean I'm not enough? Listen, stop focusing on yourself. Your cup is already full. Thanks for watching. Stay driven. I'll see you in the next one.